By now, every fan of drill music is likely familiar with the biggest bombshell news of the year, the indictment of Lil Durk for allegedly hiring his OTF affiliates to carry out the 2022 slaying of Quando Rondo's cousin Lil Pab, an alleged murder for hire attempting to get back at Quando Rondo for the killing of King Von, a shooting at the hands of his friend Lil Tim that took place 2 years before that in 2020 during an altercation between Von, Quando, and their respective entourages in front of an Atlanta hookah lounge. The brazenness, or perhaps the sheer stupidity of this alleged murder for hire plot baffles the mind, because not only did the alleged OTF affiliates decide to execute the hit in broad daylight in front of one of the most popular tourist attractions in the entire of Los Angeles, the Beverly Center shopping mall, but they allegedly also flew to LA on domestic flights specifically to commit this murder, leaving a paper trail behind them that likely made the feds rub their hands together like Birdman in 2010. But if that wasn't enough, the head honcho himself, Lil Durk, aka Smirkio, aka Smirk, aka Mustafa Abdul Malik, aka apparently Blood, would allegedly message one of his co-conspirators to specifically tell them not to use any credit cards associated with him during this crash-out voyage of the century, only for that person to do that exact thing anyway. But while many fans hope that Durk can beat this case and return home to drop fire music for years to come, he and his OTF comrades might have left one too many clues behind to successfully fight these charges. Talking about the music, ever since Durk's indictment, not many people have really gone back to see if he left any clues about the murders for fans to find. A lot of people are familiar with his lyrics on that Babyface Ray song, where he appears to rap lyrics that suggested he gave a green light to this hit, but it turns out that Lil Durk's iceberg of self-incrimination goes much deeper. In fact, I went back and listened to the very first album that he and his friends released just months after the murder of Lil Pab, and I couldn't believe what I found. Loyal Bros 2 is an OTF group mixtape released on the 16th of December 2022, just 4 months after the murder of Lil Pab, and I'm here to tell you that this project is perhaps one of the most self-incriminating projects in the history of rap music. Not only is this a group album under OTF, the very name of Durk's gang and label of the same name that allegedly carried out the murder for hire plot against Quando and Lil Pab, as referenced in the indictment, but the title of the mixtape, Loyal Bros 2, is a pretty obvious reference to the loyalty that Durk expects from his gang and label brothers. But beyond the title, the project itself is wall to wall with incriminating lyrics that not only hint towards Durk's involvement, but track by track paints a vivid picture of exactly how the events unfolded, with Durk and his collaborators making countless references to the crime and its specific details, openly claiming responsibility for the whole thing. On the opening track titled Set It Off, Durk makes an interesting comment, seemingly suggesting that he recruits killers for his business, and recounts conversations with members telling him they don't want to kill people, so Durk instead sets them up with different roles in the business like running real estate. In other lines, Durk makes ambiguous references to his ops getting caught slipping, and in the hook, he raps about giving his friends guns and asking them to shoot for him. In verse 2, he drops a bar saying one of his ops couldn't read his last DM because he was killed, something that some people have suggested is a reference to the murder of FBG Cash. But this is followed by another ambiguous bar where Durk says that he told his shooters to spin every block until their target is dead, and that somebody was due to be killed next, but he couldn't get to them, with some suggesting that this was in fact a reference to King Von's actual killer, Lil Tim, who was arrested in October 2022. The suggestion being that Durk's next murder for hire would have been Tim, but since he was in jail, they couldn't get to him. Then, on the second track, titled Mad Max featuring Future, in a bizarre display, Future seemingly opens his verse with a series of lines that again eerily mirror the exact details of Lil Durk's case, with Future rapping his lil bro, presumably Durk, drops bags and gets people killed and has people shot through the windows of their cars, and referencing that people get money put on their heads for messing with Durk. And Future even ends his verse with a jaw-dropping bit of foreshadowing, saying ain't no Rico case gonna stop another body dropping, before asking how many bodies they have. The hook of the song would see Durk and Future likening their shooters running up on people and killing them to be similar to the movie Mad Max. And then in Durk's verse, he would go on an absolute rampage of self-snitching, boldly saying that he told Young Thug everybody that he'd shot and hinting that he could have been part of that Rico case that Thug caught if the feds were recording what he said. Durk then seemingly references the murder of Quando's cousin Lil Pab, despite him actually not being involved in the death of Von, saying that when it's war, you don't see famous names being killed, but they still try and kill everyone around their targets. Durk then references the rumors that he was involved in the Pab murder, saying that he doesn't admit to crimes, but the blogs seem to accuse him as soon as people die, and saying that he would never admit to murder and is happy that other people are claiming that body, a line which I think refers to an alternative narrative that was spread around, suggesting that Lil Pab was actually killed by drug dealers that he ran off on. Of course, when the indictment dropped, it seemed pretty clear that that was cap. Durk would then go on to directly deny blackballing Quando Rondo from the record industry and casting doubt on his criminal past, before Durk says that he is the person who chooses if people live or get killed. He later appears to reference two details from the murder of Lil Pab, saying the Switch is bound to kill their ops, Free McAdoo, a 600 member who committed numerous murders, and then saying the chilling and self-incriminating line, "We're flying to get you." Now, perhaps Perhaps this could be interpreted as saying that he would fly to collect Mac from jail if he's ever released, but to me, I think it's a different bar, where Dirk is just mentioning one of his killers and then moving on to another line where he's self-incriminating himself, admitting that he will fly his shooters out to kill you, just like he did to Lil Pab. This is followed by another dark line where Dirk says, "You ain't know we were gonna get you, did you?" On the next track, Hanging with Wolves, Dirk would make some interesting references to his life in this time. In one bar, he claims that he was out of town and heard a rumor that he was wanted for murder, pretty much speaking what ended up happening into existence. Dirk went on to make references to Youngboy, whose original beef with King Von kicked off this whole thing, with Quando actually being one of Youngboy's artists signed to his label, and Dirk would refer to earlier comments suggesting that Youngboy had told the world that they were beefing and that he tried to squash the war. Then, at the end of his second verse, he drops another insane piece of foreshadowing, saying that he's the type of person to get on a flight with a warrant and that the police have got to catch him, something that he indeed tried to do. On a later track called For Real that features OTF member Booney Mo, he would reveal that he sells drugs to make money while his friends do the murders. In a later lyric, he outright says that his friends kill the ops and says that they get paid $10,000 to spin, and saying specifically that they get $20,000 if they kill one of the target's friends, and ending the song saying all his friends kill people for real if you play with them. A later track that featured Booker 600 and Lil Durk had a peculiar title, Feed 'em Addies. Now this title is a slick double entendre referring to giving their killers both Adderalls to focus on the murders that they've been tasked to do, and giving them the addresses or addies of their rivals to find them and kill them, something made explicit by the lyrics. And Booker goes on to rap that somebody's head got left on the wall for King Von. Then in Durk's verse, he would boast about having $50 million liquid, and going on to rap an eyebrow-raising bar saying that he smashed somebody's nose and that in his hood, he's Pablo. Likely a reference to Pablo Escobar, but knowing Durk's lyrical abilities, it wouldn't surprise me if this was another coded reference to Lil Pab, whose nickname was also Pablo. He then goes on to drop a series of bars that sound to me like they're directly referencing Lil Pab's murder, saying that he doesn't speak on murders or people trolling, and seemingly referencing Quando's relationship being signed to Youngboy's label, saying why you signed to the dudes that purged it. Then rapping the brutal lyric referring to the murder of Pab and Quando's reaction being broadcast on the news, saying, "When I seen he died, I kept scrolling," and admitting that he's into beef with someone's friend, another reference to Youngboy and Quando's relationship.